Ladies and gentlemen, we want you to stand and we want you to make some noise.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go racing here at Knoxville.
Only the best go 3 abreast. It is showtime at Williams Grove Speedway.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here at Eldora Speedway, it's showtime!
You got 'em for a breath. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the world of outlaws.
It's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy because, ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime! Set to do battle for 30 laps. The green flag is waving.
Hello, everybody. This is Wing Nation presented by Sage Fruit. I'm Erin Evernham. Joining me along the Zoom line, I think we call it, is my good friend Ashley Stremme. How you doing, Ashley?
Erin, I'm good. We're in Pennsylvania. Had some great racing over the weekend. A little bit of fog. A couple races left, and then all dirt roads lead to Charlotte. It's hard to believe it's that time of the year already.
Crazy, crazy. Now, did you get to go out to the track at all, or were you busy helping David somewhere?
Yes, we have a busy month this month. We have 2 weekends left these next 2 weeks, and then we finish at Eldora this year. So we've been killing it lately.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it sounds like it was quite interesting over at the National Open. Let's get into our hot topics. It was the 62nd annual Weiss Markets. Is it Weiss? You're a Pennsylvania. Okay,
yes,
Weiss Markets National Open presented by Sage Fruit. Carson Macedo, the big winner, his second win. We're going to have him on the show later. Started second. He took the lead from Macri on lap 8 and survived a real battle with Sheldon towards the end of the race. But he had quite the day. He first race, the fog out from Friday night, started provisional 25th. Pretty crazy day for Carson.
0 to hero, as they say, right? And I'm sure there's no one more excited than he is. And nothing like being able to recoup that well in the same day, right? But crazy night with all the fog. But your podium was Macedo, Sheldon, and Brad Sweet. And then prelim Friday night, as we talked, fogged out. But your winner was Buddy Kofoid. His 6th World of Outlaw win in 2024, but his first career Williams Grove win. So that's really cool.
That is cool. And I always feel like that's probably a big one because Williams Grove is hard to figure out. I don't think I ever made an A main feature there, but that's for another day. The podium was Buddy Kofoid, Darren Pittman, Chase Dietz. On the West Coast, they had the Maury Williams tribute race, the NARC King of the West at Hanford. They had twin 20s. First race was won by Justin Sanders. It was his 19th career NARC win and his 6th of 2024.
And then race 2 was our buddy Tim Kading. He picked up the win, his 73rd career NARC win, and his first of the season, which is surprising to me.
It's very surprising, and I'm guessing they had a party afterwards. But the overall winner was Cole Macedo, brother of Carson Macedo. He was 3rd in both the races. Some other notes last night, the Kubota High Limit race at I-70 Speedway. I didn't make the feature. I fell asleep, but saw this morning that Brad Sweet had his 8th High Limit win of 2024.
Same on that one, Erin. I joined you. But the midweek money champion went the sun was shining. Tyler Courtney, he finished 6th and picked up $25,000. He's also currently tied with Brad Sweet on points, but won the second tiebreaker. So the second place finishes is where it all boils out right now.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. They had to go to the second. I like trying to follow that this morning on social media. I was like, wait, so did they tie or did he actually win? So kudos to Tyler Courtney. I know he had a great season, kind of had a rough patch there, but great to see that he won the midweek money championship. Other notes, Sharon Speedway. I guess they've kind of made it known that they're going to have more 410 races next year. This year they had 9 on the schedule. The press release says the number will be greatly increased, including 2 World of Outlaws visits. We just caught up with Dave. I think it was last week or so. Great family. Love to see that Sharon's doing more.
Yes, and I think with the All-Stars kind of going away this year and that Ohio, Pennsylvania need, this I think will totally help ramp that up. So that's awesome, and kudos to them for taking a little bit of a risk.
Yeah, great news for the Ohio sprint car fans. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have Carson Macedo on the Sage Fruit Hotline.
Tony, do you even remember how to drive one of these?
It's not something you forget. You should know that. The drive to succeed, the need to win, the desire to be a champion, and we surround ourselves with partners that believe the same. Like Tony Stewart Racing, Sage Fruit strives to be the best in all they do. They work hard on the farm, in the packing facilities, and with their retail partners to provide high-quality apples and pears all year long.
You can compare apples to apples, but nothing compares to a Sage Fruit apple. Winning quality in every bite.
Hello and welcome back. This is Wing Nation presented by Sage Fruit. Joining us on the Sage Fruit hotline off of a huge win at Williams Grove Speedway, Carson Macedo, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, I'm excited. It was a good weekend, and feels good to be on Wing Nation.
Well, thanks. We appreciate you coming on. Tell us a little bit about the weekend. We know you got fogged out on Friday night and didn't have the best start to Friday night, so you had to run feature during the day on Saturday with a provisional, and then you come back and win the big race. So just tell us about the mix of emotions on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the hellacious fog wave is something that I've never seen before. That must be a PA thing, because all of a sudden it was like a tidal wave of fog was coming over the back of the grandstands, and I've never seen anything like that, really. So that was interesting. But, yeah, nevertheless, Friday night obviously got fogged out, and then we had to transition to a day show, which was really good for me because of the fact that, we were buried pretty deep into the field there. We were in the C main. I knew, there was a good chance we were going to have to take a provisional. And so, with the track just being so fast and it being overcast, it was going to be harder to pass. So with it transitioning to a day show on Saturday, I was happy about that. It gave us the opportunity for, the track to get a little bit slicker, and we were able to pass some cars. But yeah, I mean, talk about a roller coaster of emotions. I feel like, go from taking a provisional. I think we started 25th in that race and finished 12th, which I was pleased with. I felt like we got our car in a pretty good position where I felt really comfortable. Philip Dietz, Robbie McQuinn, Adam Zimmerman, they did a great job, transitioning from a car that I felt like wasn't very handling very well to something that I thought we had a capable car of running and making good results. And then winning the National Open, the biggest race of the year at Williams Grove. So that just goes to show you the sprint car racing, and sometimes that way, Jason Myers told me at one point that, it doesn't matter how bad you're missing when you're up there swinging the bat. As long as you keep swinging, you might hit a home run, and sometimes that's how it goes.
To hit a home run not once but twice with the National Open, in the first Californian to ever do that. What does it mean to you, especially knowing that there's been ties with you in Pennsylvania and some families there, as well as Jason Johnson Racing?
Yeah, I said this in Victory Lane too, but it just blows my mind that that's the race, that's the first crown jewel that I win, and then win it twice. Because my first trip to Williams Grove, I remember thinking, oh, I wish a tornado would come through and wipe this place out, because I just felt so uncomfortable and so bad there. And my first trip there as a World of Outlaw regular, I had to take a provisional both nights. So it just goes to show you that if you work hard enough and focus hard enough on something, you can overcome that adversity and get better. And I think that, with the help of Jason Johnson Racing and Philip Dietz and, JJR in general, it's made the transition of getting better at Williams Grove much easier and something that's actually possible for me. So I know it's really important to JJR to be good in the state of Pennsylvania. We've got a lot of, supporters that are longtime supporters of JJR that were originally there when Jason owned and operated and drove the car. So, the Bolts family, Sage family, they've been long-term supporters. So it feels good to get them success in their backyard and win a big race like the National Open.
Carson, I want to talk about this last bit of the season. Since Knoxville, you've won 7 times. You won the Dennis Roth Classic out on the West Coast with $83,000 to win. What is different? I mean, I always know there, as a driver, it's still hard to pinpoint one thing, but it certainly seems around the time of Knoxville, you guys caught on to something, or something's hitting right. Can you put your finger on it?
Yeah, I think that we had first of all, I think that, sprint car racing and racing in general, if you talk to any racer that races full time for a living, things change over time. So it doesn't matter if somebody's good at the moment, it changes because the tires change, the manufacturer. I mean, there's a lot of that you can get into, but because there's constantly a change in the sport, it really puts it back on the mechanics and the drivers to evolve and change with those times. And I feel like I have one of the best in Philip Dietz, he does a great job at recognizing the changes and the patterns that are happening in the tires and things like that, and he can make those adjustments to get our race car better. But Knoxville in particular, I feel like something clicked for us. We were really, really good. If you look back at that race, the first half of that event, we were pressuring Kyle Larson. I felt like we were catching him halfway. I thought we had a car to win the race. We made some adjustments on that red flag, and we actually went the wrong way. And I think that, it's funny, you got to make mistakes to learn things. And I feel like that mistake taught us what we felt like was the right way to go with our car moving forward. And it just seems like we've kind of trended in that other direction, and it's really paid off dividends. Like I said, we've been able to park in victory lane at not only, World of Outlaw events, but big World of Outlaw events. We've been able to contend, and we've been able to close back that title championship chase a little bit. So it feels good. And, you got to strike when the iron's hot. And I feel like right now we need to, continue to take advantage of the momentum that we have on our side.
The train is totally rolling in the right direction. And you talk about Philip, but I want to talk about your crew guys, Robbie and Adam. New guys, obviously the solidarity's there in Philip, and you know what you're working with. But to bring not one, but two new guys, what is that transition like? How's learning the communication that you're seeking versus what they need from you?
Well, I think that, I've always said this, and I continue to feel this way. God bless, the Lord's blessed me with people in my life and career that have always, really been great people. I look back at my career in general from day one till now, and it just seems like I've been flooded with amazing people in my life. And, when we lost Clyde and Nate last year at the end of the year, I was really nervous. Clyde is a really good buddy of mine, and Nate was too, and we really meshed seamlessly. It got to the point where we didn't even have to really communicate in order to work together. And that's when you start really doing well. You start, having good runs because you just know what each other expects, and it just becomes easy to do your job well. So, when we lost them, I was nervous. It's hard to find good crew guys, especially being out on the road full time, people that want to dedicate their lives to the cause and the sport and what everybody's trying to achieve and get on board with the ultimate goal. And, we were just so lucky over the off season. We found Adam Zimmerman, actually a good friend of Clyde Knipp's. He lives, he's from the Missouri area, very close to our shop. And then, Robbie was actually kind of a last minute grab. We went to Volusia. We were struggling. We needed another crew guy that we felt was fluent in the car chief position. And he actually was working for Noah Gas prior, made the transition to JJR right after Volusia. And they really have come in and just fit like a glove. They've been unbelievable. Robbie already had experience, so he came in, did a great job right away, and Adam's taken to the tire position in a big way. And so, now it's starting to get to that point, and I think that's some of the reason that you see the success in our team at the moment as well, and that transition and getting better throughout the year is just we're getting to that point. Philip's such a leader, and it makes it where the guys, Philip works just as hard in the trenches as anybody does, and so they see that, and they plug in that direction as well. And I think we're getting to the point where we kind of were with Clyde and Nate, where you do your job almost seamlessly without communicating, and it just goes a long way. And I'm very happy that we have them, and I'm happy that they want to continue to be a part of JJR for the future to come.
Carson, I want to talk a little bit more about Philip. You guys have had a few years together now. Your success obviously speaks for itself, but I want to talk about that relationship with the crew chief, because you guys, like I said, have known each other now, worked with each other for a few years. It's not always roses and rainbows and perfect days. What is that like as a driver to have a continuous crew chief for a few years, which is a wonderful thing, but to come over the humps and the bumps and maybe like the beginning of this season wasn't exactly what you wanted to start. What is that like working with Philip?
Yeah, so Philip is just an unbelievable person. That's so many people lose sight of that in sprint car racing, I think, especially because it's an expensive sport, and a lot of the times the people that are owning the team or pulling the strings are very wealthy individuals that have been able to, without lack of a better word, basically buy success. And that just isn't the case in sprint car racing at all. It's really not the case in any form of racing. Any sport, it takes people to win races. And you can go buy all the best equipment. Anybody that's been involved in racing knows that. And it doesn't make you go fast. A lot of the times it can help temporarily or maybe you know, it can help your program get a little better, but ultimately to perform at the top level, you have to have the best people. And Philip's he's just a great guy, you know, and when I worked with him in 2018 after Jason's accident, I saw it right away. Like he's a selfless person that, you know, you come in and it's never the blame game. It's never, hey, you know, you did this wrong and that's why we're not fast. It's me a lot of times getting out and saying, hey, this is what I feel and this is what I could have done better. And then he says, okay, well, this is what I see and this is how your car can be better. And then it's us getting together to work towards that common goal, getting our race car better, or me doing a better job. Hey, maybe I think, you know, this is something you could do different inside the car that maybe would fix that problem. And I mean this when I say this, and it's going to sound crazy because this is a different dynamic than most crew chief driver. Philip and I have never once got out and screamed and yelled at each other. We've never once got out and blamed each other. It's always a dynamic where we work together. And I think a lot of that comes back to Philip's character and the person that he is. You know, when you have somebody that's willing to take some of it on their chest, it makes you feel like you can too. And you don't have to, you know, make an excuse or blame somebody else for something that's going on. So I think that goes a long way. And I think that's what it takes to work together and to be a good team. And, I mean, I'm biased, but I think Philip and I probably work together better than anyone.
That's absolutely incredible to hear you say that you two have never literally screamed at each other. Not that it was necessarily anybody's fault, but tempers just run high at any point, you know, to not have a screaming match. That's absolutely incredible. I'm truly impressed by that.
We're competitors, right? So like, that's the hardest part, you know, when you dump your life, your soul and your effort. I mean, literally anything, any edge I can get outside of the race car to be a better race car driver, I'm doing it. So that showed like the passion side of it we have, but you can't let that override the relationship. And when you scream and yell at each other, anybody can say, oh, well, you know, I can look past it because we're competing, but you always have that in the back of your mind, like, oh, you know, he's going to get that way when things go bad. And that's when you're supposed to uplift each other. That's when you're supposed to bring somebody to the next level, not tear them down. And you know, there's been a lot of success at JGR, but there's been a lot of early this year at Volusia, we ran very bad every night, and never once did we point fingers at each other. And it was like, okay, well, how are we going to fix this after Volusia was over? I'll fly out. We'll go to the chassis dyno. We're going to go there together. We're going to figure this out. And then we go back to Volusia and we run on the podium. Like, that's how it's supposed to be, you know? So I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of, you know, the person that Philip is.
And Carson, sorry, Erin, I don't mean to interrupt, but real quick, Carson, I know you shared with us, it was probably last year at some point, that I think were talking to like a sports therapist, psychiatrist that you were working with to keep your mental game sharp.
Yeah, and that goes a long way, right? Because your brain is wired to give, you know, negative self-talk. And so it's easy to talk yourself out of big moments. It's easy to talk yourself out of success. And it's not anyone's fault. It's nobody intends or tries to do this, but naturally our brain goes to you know, you're in your car driving, and what do you know, the first, oh, I don't want to get in a wreck, or I'm starting on the front row, I don't want to get beat, you know, that's negative self-talk that you can't have if you want to succeed at the highest level of any sport. And you know, the greatest athletes of all time figure out how to transverse that into something that's positive talk. And so a lot of why I work with a sports psychologist is not for getting along with people or fixing, you know, like a problem that I have, more so, you know, just doing the right things to be a better athlete. So yeah, it's great. And like I said, I try to do everything I can outside the car to be the best I can be.
Carson, when you say that, does that obviously I'm assuming that is a workout regimen? Is it also watching race video? What other things do you do outside of the car to help?
Yeah, I mean, I do everything I can. I mean, all the above that you just listed, I definitely, you know, I think that all of it's important, and I think that we're athletes. We're supposed to be professional athletes, so you know, it just seems to me like you wouldn't be doing your job if you weren't doing all those things.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. So, and more personal side, how do you balance that? Like when I was racing, I always call myself like an all or nothing person. Like if I'm in, I'm focused all in on it. But I know you have a fiance. You have to balance regular life. How do you find that balance?
Well, I'm lucky in the regard that I don't. There's probably portions of my first of all, my fiance is very supportive. Holly, she lives out here with me on the West Coast and does a great job at maintaining our balance in our life. She probably helps me with a lot of that more than anything. And so meeting her has been, a blessing in that regard. But past that, I think the ability that I've gained to fly home, I fly home as much as I possibly can. I'm home right now and I'll leave on tomorrow and then fly back in on Sunday. And that gives me the ability to stay regimen, go to the gym. I mean, everyone knows that it's been out on the road. I'm sure it's no surprise to you guys. Obviously, you guys have done it. Being out on the road it's tough to be regimen. It's tough to eat well. It's tough to work out consistently. It's harder. You don't have a gym to go to. Maybe you're in a hotel and they have nothing. Like it's just harder to make those right decisions. And so coming home and spending that time with her and getting to bed at a reasonable hour and staying in a routine has actually helped me be a better race car driver. And, I can remember at one point in my career thinking, oh, well, I need to be a single guy and focus all my attention on driving the race car. And, so to my surprise, really the opposite came into play. I was more worried about, going out and doing a lot of the wrong things, and actually settling down with Holly has probably made me a better race car driver in general, just because I'm not worried about those things anymore. I'm more worried about getting home and spending time with her and going to the gym and eating right and maybe going to church on Sunday if I'm home in time and doing things that are actually beneficial for me and what I should be doing. So, not always is maintaining focus in being a single guy and not having that burden a good thing. And it wasn't really for me.
Couldn't agree more. You absolutely nailed it. So with that being said, there's only a couple more weeks left in the season here. What is the off season looking for Carson? What does the future look like for Carson Macedo?
Well, I'm getting married in December of next year, so we're kind of, Holly's mostly planning that, but this off season, we're going to be busy. I'm just no different than really any of the last off seasons. I've always taken the approach that racing more often is a better thing, and she's on board with that. She likes going in places and doing all the traveling with me. So we're going to race midgets out here on the West Coast for the month of November. And then, we got a wedding to go to. Spencer Basin's getting married down in Mexico. So we'll go to that there first week of December and then come back. And I think I leave for Australia the middle part of December. I think the 11th or 13th or something like that of December. And then Holly and she's a school teacher, so she gets the winters off. So she'll be able to come over for a majority of that trip. And we'll be there until the end of January and then come back and right back out in Volusia, So staying busy. And we really wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, certainly not a lot of downtime. Carson, before we get to the end of the season, you mentioned earlier the points battle. You've closed the gap a little bit. When you look at that, obviously a championship would mean the world, but do you look at statistics of like where you need to finish these next several races versus where David needs to finish, or do you just kind of let it play out?
Well, it's hard to say that, you can sit there and go, okay, I need to finish this many spots ahead of him every race on average, but ultimately, like, so much can happen, you say that and then somebody might have a DNF or we might have a DNF, you obviously would never want to speak that into existence, but you just never know. And that's what makes sprint car racing so unique, so really for us, it's just about, we're proud of the season that we put forward. We've won races. We've been able to compete, in some of the bigger races and do a good job. And I feel like for us as a team, we're still in the growing stages in my opinion, of JJR. When I look at where we should be, where we could be, and what we're doing, as far as just getting better as a team. So, I do, if I wouldn't be a competitor, if I didn't think that I could win the championship, I do think that there's a very big possibility that we can still win it. And I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to win that championship. But ultimately, we're still very proud of the season that we've put forward. And we're going to continue to work as hard as we can to get that points championship. So, we've had moments this year where we've been very close and closed in, and then had some misfortune. But we're back on a trend where I think we can reach that goal. And obviously, David, the 2-car, big game, really good competitors, and ultimately, it feels good to compete for a championship against guys that are probably just as hungry as us, and we're excited to look forward to the challenge.
You talk about, that you guys are still growing. Obviously, I know you have goals and aspirations, obviously winning a championship, but is there like a top 5 that you have ranked of goals that you will want to hit personally?
Yeah. And I really thought that would be last on the list, but anyways, it didn't play out that way. I'd love to win the Knoxville National, the Kings Royal. A race that was important to me that, is probably not important to everyone, but to me, the Tom Tarleton Classic, when they did that race, I was really excited about that because Tommy and Tom Tarleton gave me my start in sprint car racing. So that was special to be able to win that. We've won it 3 times now. So, I mean, that was really cool. For me and my family, that was special. And then, the World of Outlaw Championship ultimately is the ultimate goal. It speaks for itself. It's the hardest thing to win. That's why only so many guys have won it, and very few have won it. Most people that do win it more than once because in order to reach that capability as a race car driver and as a competitor in the sport, you have to be at an ultimate level, and it's hard to beat that once you get there. So I think that speaks volumes for itself. Very few people have won it, and there's a very short list of people that have won it more than once. So that's what we're going to continue to work towards. And I think that if we can continue to trend in the direction that we are, there's nothing that we can't accomplish.
For sure. Carson, I want to ask you about the World of Outlaws in general. Obviously, going into the 2024 season with the announcement of high limit racing and people choosing where they were going to go, we didn't know what it would look like at this point in the season. And it seems like the World of Outlaws are still very strong. Your crowds are amazing. But we're seeing it from afar, from someone who's on the inside, who's second in points. What are your thoughts on the World of Outlaws right now?
Oh, well, I think that it's a controversial question, obviously, with everything that's going on. But I think that in general, my opinion is I'm a big believer in capitalism. I think that ultimately, in order for a business to reach full potential, it needs competition in the market. I think that the reason that Lowe's sells a good job, does a good job at their sales, and they make sure they have enough people hired and they have their store clean, is because Home Depot is a competitor. And I think that, they're also trying to do all those things to be the best so that they can win the customer's business. And I think that with High Limit being, new to the scene, that was another outlet for a driver to make a choice and a decision on where they wanted to race and where they decided to spend their time and where they decided to feel that their car for a car owner, for a crew guy. I mean, everybody has a choice now. And so what's that done? I mean, that's drove competition into the market. It's made the streaming services better. I think Dirt Vision's gotten better. I think that the World of Outlaws have gotten better. I think Flow and High Limits made everybody step up. Purses have went up. And I mean, the list goes on. Everything's gotten better, not only for World of Outlaws and Dirt Vision, but also for High Limit and Flow Racing, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think that you're seeing that in the crowds. I think fans get excited about that. I think they see the improvement. I think that you're seeing bigger crowds on both fronts, in my opinion. And you're seeing when they do come together and race as one unit, it's a rivalry that, similar to what we have in Pennsylvania when the Posse goes and races against the Outlaws in the past. And now you got them coming into the National Open. It's Posse versus Outlaws versus High Limit. So it just gives one more thing, and in my opinion, I think, like I said, I think competition in the market drives up everything. It makes the consumer, it gives the consumer more options. It makes it better for the consumer. It makes it better as a company. I'm sure they're having to work harder. I'm sure they probably don't like that, but ultimately that's business.
Mm-hmm. I loved your analogy of Lowe's versus Home Depot, because it paints a picture for a race fan who necessarily doesn't understand the ins and outs of it. But as a racer, do you miss racing against some of those guys on a weekly basis and knowing that they're growing your potential to be better?
It's the only thing that I miss more than anything as a competitor. something that I struggle with. There's a part of me when it all happened that you can't help but be excited when you're doing this for a living. When you're racing a sprint car for a living or a race car, you're an athlete in general. You know that it's not for a long time. It's for a good time. It's for a short time, because you can't make a lifelong career as far as you're not going to race a sprint car when you're 65. So, you gotta appreciate the good times, and you got to make as much money as you can so that one day you can stash it away and do something else when it comes that time, because there's always that next young kid that's working hard, that's putting in the effort to win races and to beat you. So I think that you got to face that reality, and the reality is that you want to make more money, you want to make a better living, and people can say they don't do it for the money, and ultimately I don't either. I really don't. If I wanted to do something for the money, I would start a business or do something else. But ultimately, I love sprint car racing, but I still got to make a living at it. I still got to provide for my family, and so that made me excited and happy. The part that disappointed me is, myself, Brad Sweet, and David Gravel for the last 3 years have been competing for a World of Outlaw championship, and Brad was the benchmark in my opinion. Now that's controversial. I'm sure there's probably drivers that would be bummed to hear that, but he was the best. He won 5 championships straight, and to me, it just felt a little bit it was very disappointing, to see him go a different direction. And if you win a championship, you feel like there's an asterisk next to it a little bit, just because Brad was the best and you want to beat the best. And I had that conversation with Brad even when it was all happening, because obviously I was one of the advocators that thought, like I just said, competition in the market's a good thing. But ultimately, I said, well, how about when you were right on the cusp of beating Donnie Schatz in the championship, and he says, okay, I'm going to hang it up. How would you feel about that? And he was honest. He turned around and said, yeah, I understand how you feel. I get it. And so, you wouldn't be much of a competitor if you didn't feel that way, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, we appreciate the very candid answer. Carson, one last question. You were talking about competition and your competitors. It was announced your brother's going to race full-time with Wayne Johnson in the World of Outlaws next year for the Rookie of the Year. What are your thoughts, and how excited are you maybe to have your brother along with you on the road?
Yeah, it's going to be wild having him there every night. I would have never thought that. It's hard to make it to the ultimate level of any sport, and I think that the World of Outlaws now with High Limit, I think that's the pinnacle. And it's for my parents, it's been a really cool thing. There's only me and Cole, in our family, and to both be on the World of Outlaw tour is pretty cool, especially for my parents. So it's going to be interesting for him to be out there every night. I think he's going to do a really good job. I think he's probably going to do way better than a lot of people think. I've been watching him run that 16 car, and he's been able to be, in the top 10 or close to the top 10 or in the top 5 almost every night that he's ran that car this year with the Outlaws. So I think he's going to do a great job. I think that team's got really good equipment. They've got a good attitude towards building towards the future, and I'm excited for him. I'm first year on the Outlaw Tour is always like a great year in my opinion, because you go in with no expectations, and that's a good feeling to have. If you go out there and you run good, it's like, oh man, how awesome is that? And then when you don't, it's like, well, it's our first year. It's all good. So, it's a good year, and I'm excited for him.
That's awesome. Well, Carson, we really appreciate the time. We wish you the best of luck this weekend in Pennsylvania at Lincoln Speedway and on throughout the rest of the season.
I appreciate that, guys. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, always a pleasure. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Well, that was Carson Macedo, who joined us, gave us some great info, some very candid thoughts. Huh, Ashley?
Yes, I love it. I've always loved chatting with Carson. He's always real and honest.
Yes, very cool. All right, stay with us. More Wing Nation in just a minute.
Tony, do you even remember how to drive one of these?
It's not something you forget. You should know that. The drive to succeed, the need to win, the desire to be a champion. And we surround ourselves with partners that believe the same. Like Tony Stewart Racing, Sage Fruit strives to be the best in all they do. They work hard on the farm, in the packing facilities, and with their retail partners to provide high-quality apples and pears all year long.
You can compare apples to apples, but nothing compares to a Sage Fruit apple. Winning quality in every bite.
Welcome back. This is Wing Nation presented by Sage Fruit. Let's go to the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum birthday calendar. Monday birthdays would have been Ken Coles and Emmett Buzz Barton. Tuesday, Eddie Rickenbacker, Everett Saylor, and Gary Stanton. Thursday, Emmett Hahn's birthday. Saturday, Don Martin. Today's birthdays, there's a few of them. Bruce Bohm, Pat O'Connor, R. Keith Hall, Donnie Kreitz Jr., Travis Spider Webb. But we're going to focus on R. Keith Hall. He was a class of 2004 National Sprint Car Hall of Fame inductee, born in Idaho, played basketball and football for Southern Mississippi and Arizona State. He purchased Phoenix Auto Auction in 1957, and in 1963, he was the Rookie of the Year at Manzanita. 1965, he bought Manzanita Speedway. He refurbished the facility. In 1966, Friday and Saturday night racing with 9 classes total. Whew, 9 classes. 1968, the Western United States Championship became a tradition. The Hall of Fame showman, he had cars and trips. He gave cars and trips to winners. His employees wore tuxedos at times. Miss Manzanita had a horse and carriage. Manzanita became a destination as a racetrack. He sold it in 2004, and the track continued until 2009 when it was sadly sold and is no longer there. Did you ever go to Manzanita?
I was young, but yes, it was a long time ago.
I just remember going there with the World of Outlaws, and they told me that if you flip out of the place, be really careful because it's a junkyard and the junkyard dogs will chase you. So I didn't flip out of the track. Instead, I just got up in the fence and my car burned down. But, you know, other than that, so at least I didn't have to worry about the dogs. Yeah, that's my Manzanita story. Anyways, let's talk about what's coming up this weekend now.
I love it.
Moving on.
Oh my goodness. Hey, don't forget to visit sprintcarhof.com for all the awesome stories. Erin's on
Maybe
fire
my story will be in there
being
someday. Yes, I did forget to mention, you can get your membership for $25, National Sprint Car Hall of Fame membership. You go to sprintcarstuff.com or sprintcarhof.com. They have plenty of awesome information and goodies in their gift shop.
Buy it.
Okay, so
or two.
Yes, we've hit it up during the Nationals, a time or 10. Okay, let's move on. So this week, tonight, high limit racing. What do you got, Ashley?
High limit racing. It is Wednesday at Lucas Oil Speedway in Wheatland, Missouri. It's the Diamond Classic, $25,000 to win. Friday, Saturday, the season finale weekend, and Saturday is 50 G's to win. Really cool little area out there. What Lucas Oil has put there on the compound entirely.
Yeah, it'll be another big weekend for the high limit racing, which closes out their season. Like they already announced, we've talked about Brad Sweet is the champion. World of Outlaws, like we mentioned when we were getting off the phone with Carson Macedo. They're at Lincoln Speedway, just your neighbor, just down the road from you. $20,000 to win. Are you going to make that, or are you busy working?
No, we'll actually be in North Carolina racing this weekend. One of our next to last trips. So unfortunately missed Lincoln, which is kind of cool. Got thrown into the schedule there late as a replacement. So excited to see how that all unfolds as well. And then, of course, NARC King of the West, Thunderbolt Raceway in Tulare, and then Lernerville, the Steel City Stampede. And that's kind of, then we all head to Charlotte, right?
Yeah, we're getting to that point in the season where our list of upcoming races gets shorter and shorter, but we still have some good racing to come. What a great show. So great to catch up with Carson. Just really down-to-earth guy who's having a ton of success, and he's very articulate and candid. I feel like he gave us a great interview.
Yes, he's always enjoyable to talk to. You know, you're going to get honesty when you talk to him, and he just presents it so well that it's so easy to understand from his perspective. So kudos to Carson for always bringing the good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Well, make sure you follow us on all our social media. All of our stuff is on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube pages. Just want to thank Carson Macedo again for joining us. He was great. Thank you, Ashley, from hopping on all the way in Pennsylvania. Safe travels to Charlotte. And most importantly, thank you, the fans, for joining us here today on Wing Nation presented by Sage Fruit.